What's up? I'm going to tell you about my favorite things in January. My name is Doug Cunnington. I'm the founder of Niche Site Project. I normally talk about Amazon affiliate marketing, internet marketing, and sometimes a little project management and productivity. This is a new thing I'm going to try. I'm going to talk about things I like in a given month. So I got the idea from some other YouTube channels. I'll actually tell you about a few of those YouTube channels. Here are a couple things I'm going to tell you about. This month, I will go over some journaling stuff that I'm into right now. I'll talk about some books that I've read. Additionally, I didn't drink any alcohol in January. So today, right now, is the 30th of January. So I just have another day left to go. And it's interesting. It may not be a challenging thing for you, but for me, it is a little challenging, and I'll explain more about that. The other thing is I've been meditating every day since December 22nd. I've been using an app, which I'll tell you about in a minute. It feels good. I like it. Last thing, I'll tell you about YouTube channels that I'm watching and I'm digging right now. There's a handful, and these vary. They change from time to time. People ask me all the time about the YouTube channels that I follow, so I'll tell you about them today. First thing that I'm into is journaling. So I've had more interest in journaling as I've done more self-improvement type projects and stuff. So number one thing, and I had it right next to me a second ago, but the Stoic journal. So this is like the Daily Stoic and the Daily Stoic journal, and they kind of go hand in hand. So the other journaling thing that I'm into is bullet journaling. So let me know in the comments, by the way, are you familiar with bullet journaling? And I just used a plain black notebook that I had. It's fairly high quality paper. I can't remember. I think it's like 80 grams per, I'm not sure the measurement. It's like 80 grams per square meter or something like that. I could be totally off, but it is fairly thick paper. It's a pretty standard one from like Office Depot or something like that. It has like the date at the top. It's not the actual traditional bullet journal, but that's okay. You could use any notebook. And this is where I really got into the bullet journal concept. So here's the deal. When I first saw bullet journaling, I saw YouTube videos. I saw these very beautiful, like artistic journals, and there were really nice drawings. It was very like ornate. As you could tell, I'm no artist, right? A lot of the stuff that I do is sloppy. I'm no designer. I don't have a background in that. I'm much more like, I just didn't get all the beautifulness of the bullet journal, and I thought that was like what it was supposed to be, like calligraphy or something like that. When I went and actually looked at the bullet journal website, it is merely a framework which is hugely flexible. It turns out people that are into it, they are sometimes like really good artists, so that's why we see such beautiful artwork in these bullet journal videos. But I'm not going to go and tell you about all the framework of the bullet journal, but I will tell you the number one thing that I got out of the bullet journal. Now let me explain a problem that I have. So I have like several different notebooks, and I typically keep a notebook sort of like this. I've talked about it a few times, but I'll keep a notebook like this. I'll have like partial to-do list. I'll have a little journal entry. Maybe we'll do some free writing. Sometimes I brainstorm. I'll do a brain dump. It's a multi-purpose notebook. The notebook usually lasts me maybe like 9 months or 10 months, something like that. The cool part is while I'm working with a notebook, for like a couple weeks, I can refer back to maybe a journal entry that I wrote in there. But basically, I can't find anything. So I have journals from a couple years ago where I know there's like interesting information, but I can't find any of it. I may as well just like throw away the notebooks, right? They're kind of useless if you can't find the information back in there. The majority of it is like to-do list kind of stuff and like notes and tasks for a day. That said, the most obvious solution is staring me right in the face, right? The bullet journal talks about this immediately. There's an index at the beginning, right? All you have to do is have the pages numbered, and then you can write the page number, write the topic. You could find whatever you need to find in like a second. So the notebook that they typically refer to, I don't know how to pronounce it, but It's a notebook that has a couple pages at the beginning that are labeled index, and all the pages are numbered. So problem solved. Now, my notebook, it didn't have page numbers, but I just added them in, right? No big deal. I just, added in the page numbers and it's good to go. The funny part, and there's such flexibility with the bullet journal that it didn't matter, but as I was numbering it, I wrote the wrong number a couple times, but it doesn't matter. I just ended up putting 65A and 65B. I mean, relatively speaking, I could find the entry that I'm looking for, even if I labeled it with animals and shapes or whatever, but numbers and a couple letters, I'll be able to find what I need. So the bullet journal, good so far. And it's really a framework. So if you had the interpretation of a bullet journal being like a piece of artwork, go check out bulletjournal.com and you'll see it's merely a framework, a very flexible framework. And you could they encourage you to pick and choose which you want to use and omit stuff that you don't want to use. So if you're looking for a framework of productivity or a way to journal and keep stuff like that, check out that framework and see how it works for you. It's great for me so far. I mean, I was kind of doing it anyway, and now I just have a very slightly more formal way than what I was doing before, and the magical index where you could find, what you wrote and when you wrote it, and it's fantastic. Up next is books that I've read. So the print book that I've read, sort of the business-oriented one, is this one here by Dan Rome called Back of the Napkin. And it's all about solving problems and explaining problems with pictures and simple pictures, right? They intend, I mean, you could tell just by the artwork on the book that, they're using stick figures. You don't have to be an artist to, solve problems with drawings. And they actually want it to be approachable, right? They want, non-artists and regular people to, use, images that you could draw on a napkin to explain things. And the concepts and ideas are quite simple in a few, different ways. However, the framework, again, is really useful and it gives you sort of a process to go through. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to use more images to explain, concepts in marketing and in general to, help explain to other people these ideas. But, a couple of the interesting things are around my background as a project manager, where they had an image in here as a sort of a flow chart, and you apply a flow chart to a timeline and you end up with something pretty close to a project plan or maybe a swim lane diagram, stuff like that. It's very interesting how you can slice and dice different concepts. So this was a really cool book, and I'm looking forward to using some of the tools that I learned in here in real life problems and stuff like that. So one of the cool things that they had in here was divided into different sections, like a lot of books are, and they had a quote MBA section where they went through a case study and they taught the concepts in the first couple sections of the book, and they apply it to a real life situation, which was a made up situation. However, it was a very realistic one. In fact, it sounded like a case study that actually could be covered in an MBA, type situation, where they just changed the names and some of the specific, concepts, but the main ideas were very real. I found the book super helpful, and if you're interested in, bringing those kind of ideas to your full-time, corporate job, or if you're an entrepreneur, it applies there as well. I mean, a lot of times, if we have to explain our business, whatever your business may be, to someone who's not in the industry, you kind of have to break it down into simple concepts, and that's what Back of the Napkin does. Other books that I read, so I read probably 50% fiction as well. I usually read a fiction book before I go to bed. So I kind of go on binges of certain authors. I especially like sort of crime drama books. So I've been reading an author named Michael Connelly. He wrote the Bosch series. So there's a Harry Bosch crime series. And then I found he wrote another series called The Lincoln Lawyer. So I read a couple Lincoln Lawyer books in January. I also read an Isaac Asimov science fiction book, obviously a very well-known author. And that one was called Fantastic Voyage. I've started a couple others that I haven't finished yet. And honestly, I haven't been reading as many business books this month. Like typically I would have read more, but I was sort of busy with other stuff. So I read a few fiction books, but I only made it through one nonfiction book, Back in the Napkin. So I have a few others like on my plate right now that I'm working through. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you about those in February. I have been meditating every day since December 22nd. So last year I really didn't meditate much, and I've gone through certain periods. There was actually a period in like 2014 or so where I meditated, I think for about 90 days straight. And then I kind of like lost interest and stopped doing it. I read a few books towards the tail end of the year, like in November and December, around productivity. A lot of those books reference some form of meditation, and I'm interested in it, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And I downloaded an app called Calm. It's one of the more popular meditation apps, and I really like it. So I upgraded and paid for, I think it's like $60 for a year or so, and it unlocks the whole app, so you can pick, whatever meditation sort of theme you want to go on, and it's a great way to track your streaks and the number of times you've meditated in the last month or whatever. A couple of people asked me if I had used Headspace, and I tried Headspace back in 2014, and here's the deal. I thought the person's voice and accent were like, I just didn't appreciate it. Like they were distracting and I hated it. I listened to like one or two of the sessions and I'm like, I'm out. But the Calm app, it's a much more pleasant voice to my ears, and that's a very personal thing. So, check it out. Most of the apps out there, have some sort of a free trial. You can test drive them. So give it a shot if you're interested in using an app. When I meditated before, I basically just focused on my breathing and set a timer. That was pretty much it. I kept it simple and it was fine. Dry January. So my wife and I decided not to drink any alcohol in January. And for us, it's actually quite challenging. I'm going to do a whole video on habits and how I was able to use the concepts from the book called Power of Habit to pretty much, stop drinking cold turkey and not really struggle with it at all. It's very interesting. Now, you may be thinking, oh, that's not very hard, Doug. Now, it is for me. The thing is, I love beer. Most of my friends I met through my homebrew club or breweries around here. And the thing is, I homebrew beer. I've been brewing beer for about a decade. I'm a beer judge. I'm a nationally ranked beer judge, and I'm really into beer, right? So I have a kegerator. There's 6 taps on there. We drink beer, probably 1 or 2 beers every single day for the last 2 years or so. I've done a dry month before. My wife and I have both worked on a dry month before, and it's been a while. So we basically have had a drink every day for quite a stretch. Today's the 30th. We just got a day or two left, and funny enough, my homebrew club meeting is on the 1st of February, so I'll be able to go hang out with them and share the fact that I didn't drink for a month. So no major reason to do it other than it's good to take a break every once in a while and let your body recuperate, if you will. And on the health track, I got a Fitbit for Christmas. So I think it's the Charge 2, I think is what it's called. So it's just your standard Fitbit, nothing too fancy. And a couple of the awesome features on the Fitbit are the sleep tracker, which is super interesting. A looks like I probably need to get a little more sleep on a regular basis. The other part is the heart rate monitor that's on here. So I was under the impression that it wasn't so accurate, but actually pretty accurate from what I could tell. And at least from a relative sense, it gives you a good idea of your resting heart rate, particularly if you wear them overnight to get that sleep monitoring. It'll also get your resting heart rate. So there's some other cool stuff in the app, which is on the phone, of course. Anyway, the Fitbit's super cool. I like it way more than I thought I was going to. So it's cool that I got it as a gift. I probably wouldn't have purchased it on my own. Let me know. Anybody else have a Fitbit? Perhaps we can, connect on Fitbit. And this is one of the other cool things. You could challenge people in your network, and you can go for the most number of steps, or there's like virtual hikes and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. And let me know in the comments if you do have a Fitbit and you're like actively using it. It could be cool to have like a niche site project challenge group or something like that. All right, finally, what YouTube channels am I watching right now? I have a couple different themes that I kind of look at. So one area is like YouTube creator. I'm very interested in learning more about growing on YouTube, and I geek out on camera gear and all this kind of details like that. So I'm watching a lot of those kind of channels. So a couple of those are Roberto Blake and video influencers. So video influencers is, I think it's Sean Cannell and Benji. Hopefully I'm not mixing up the channel. I know Sean has like multiple channels that he's working on, but basically lots of good information on those two channels. And then Derek Halpern, somebody I followed for years. Actually, when I first started blogging, he was one of the first people I started following. So I actually have taken a couple of his courses, and he's sort of a mentor from afar. Derek definitely has his, New York personality shining through. So that's pretty interesting. I'll put links to all these channels, by the way. One of the other channels that I'm surprised that I ended up, enjoying so much is called Refusing to Settle. So a guy named Clark, he's been, blowing up over the last probably year and a half or so, but he's had his YouTube channel out for a while. He's a, solo entrepreneur from what I could gather. It seems like he's running things on his own. He has a ton of stuff on journaling. And I think, going back to what I was talking about before with, the Stoic journal and then the bullet journal, I think I saw some of his journaling videos, and he has like an interesting thing going on. He sort of inspired me to, look a little bit deeper at my own content. I noticed that, he had a couple videos that were doing well, and then he would do like a bunch of other videos around the same topic. When you start looking at other people's channels, you will notice that most of the time when they have an area that's going really well, they do more of it. It seems obvious when I say it out loud, but when you look at Refusing to Settle and that channel's growth, it's pretty amazing. He has great content across the board and a couple others. So there's another set of like content that I watch, and it's around like digital nomad stuff and just like watching what other YouTubers are doing. So a couple of my friends, one is Zoey Arielle, and then the other is Mackenzie Fly. So they've both been interviewed on the channel. I'll place links in the description, but I watch their videos pretty often as well. So, check them out if you're interested. It's a different take. It's not marketing related. They talk about, digital nomad stuff and some minimalism and just whatever else. And for me, it's interesting to, be the minority like demographic. So from what I gather, right, I'm just guessing, but their audiences mostly female. So it's definitely interesting to see, what other channels are doing that are like way outside what I would normally watch. Normally I was checking out like entrepreneurship stuff, marketing related, and that sort of thing. So to go outside and see what other like areas of the YouTube like ecosystem are doing, very interesting. And that wraps up the January favorites. So let me know if you enjoy this sort of format or if you have suggestions. If you're interested in like a shorter form video where I don't ramble as much, let me know that. Or if you like listening to me ramble on, struggle to find my words and stuff like that, let me know in the comments below. If it happens to be your first time on the channel, take a look at some of the other videos. I talk a lot about Amazon affiliate marketing and project management productivity. So if that's sort of your thing, you may want to consider subscribing. I'm definitely looking for suggestions since this is my first run at like my monthly favorites.